Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. Ever since Prime Minister Modi took over for a third term, the priority for the NDA government is how to become a Viksit Bharat or have a developed nation by 2047. And this indeed is the goal for industry bodies like the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Today we catch up with Anish Shah, the Managing Director of the Mahindra Group, the President of FICCI, to look at his priorities over the last 1 year and what India needs to do to grow its manufacturing footprint abroad as well. Mr. Shah, thank you very much for joining us. You complete 1 year as FICCI President. Give us a sense of your priorities and challenges.
So good morning, Parikshit. Pleasure being here with you. And in terms of priorities, FICCI's focus this year was essentially on Viksit Bharat. From a timing standpoint, my presidency started right around the time when the Prime Minister announced Viksit Bharat. And the Prime Minister also was very kind to give us time to meet literally on my first day in this role. And based on his guidance, we basically outlined 4 key areas: Make in India, women-led development, farm prosperity, and sustainability. And while we worked on many other areas as well, these were the 4 priority areas to help drive real actions for us to get to Viksit Bharat.
Right. Now, India is aiming to be a Viksit Bharat or developed nation by 2047. That will need a sustained growth of about 8% every year. What do you think India needs to do on that front?
So beyond the sustained growth of 8%, it's also a significant shift in manufacturing, because manufacturing will have to go to 25% of GDP. And if we work the numbers, that's a 16x increase in 23 years. So what India has to do first is, around what we call Make in India, focus on high quality, focus on ease of doing business, and focus on reducing manufacturing costs. Because India has to be the manufacturing hub of the world. We have the ability to do that. And the focus on these 3 areas will enable us to do that. There are a number of actions required. Many of them are at the ground level, and that's what we've been working with multiple ministries on: inverted duty structures, creating greater competitiveness for companies in India, and I mean all companies in India, not just Indian companies. The approach that we've taken is not around protectionism at all. In fact, we should be open to others coming in. We should have a lot more FTAs, but we should create an environment where everyone manufacturing in India finds it to be the best place to manufacture. And they position their global manufacturing hubs in India as well. That is what will drive success for us. So first is manufacturing has to be a major play. Second is with regard to farm. Agriculture continues to be a significant portion of our economy. And how do we improve productivity in agriculture? Whether it is in terms of productivity of produce per acre or per hectare. And second is reducing wastage and ensuring that the supply chains are set up in a manner where we can reduce that. That has significant other benefits also in terms of reducing food inflation in the short run. But that's another big area. Third is, as we look at the labor force, how do we get more women in the labor force? And what are the specific actions required for that? And which is why women-led development is a very important part of our agenda. And as we do all of this, we have to take leadership in the world on sustainability. And the government has been doing that. We've set some fairly ambitious targets to be 50% renewable by 2030, and a number of other targets beyond that going up to 2070 as well. So what are the actions on sustainability that enable India to lead in the world, but at the same time ensure that we've got cleaner cities, that we've got a greener country overall? And that's important for all of us as we live here.
Right. To speak about manufacturing specifically, what has been the recommendation to the government recently on how to increase India's manufacturing footprint, also to make sure we win globally with exports and also localize at very high levels, maybe around 80% in certain sectors?
So here the benefit, Parikshit, has been that FICCI is the largest industry association and has representation from large companies to MSMEs, and is also a chamber that represents multiple other chambers around the country. So therefore, our members could provide some very good input, because these are not recommendations at a high level. These are very granular recommendations by industry. So we've had multiple committees of FICCI across industries provide specifics on here's what's required for this industry to be able to succeed in terms of manufacturing in India. As part of that, we actually created a 1 to 2 page set of industry recommendations for every ministry. It was literally a 78-page book, along with a few pages on actions to transform India. And this was something we've worked closely with multiple ministries. They've had multiple questions as follow-ups, things that we've had to go back with. And that has really been the benefit of FICCI playing a role in, from a thought leadership standpoint. The high level of recommendation, or the categories of recommendations, are again around quality, ease of doing business, cost of manufacturing, and specifics in each area as to what is required. One example there is rationalization of PCBs in terms of what we import, and how can we create more exports here, or more manufacturing here that enables more exports. It also involves how do we enhance quality by leveraging our R&D spend. So what is the best way to set up a mechanism for the 1 lakh crore amount that has been set up separately for R&D, and how do we get real outcomes from that that enable our companies to be more innovative, more successful from that standpoint. What are the quality standards that can be set up? What are ideas around things that we can do for quality standards? How do we make it easier to manufacture in India by even setting up plants? And that's where the industrial parks is a great step forward. But how do we take industrial parks forward where a company can come in and within 3 months set up a plant that enables a lower cost of manufacturing, a faster time to market? So it's a very granular set of actions across each of these points that we've driven.
So which are the sectors? For example, you mentioned printed circuit board assemblies, which can be localized and can be exported from India. Are there any other product lines which you feel India has a right to win in but have not yet been tapped?
I'd say there are lots of product lines, and I'd start with auto. India's got a thriving automotive industry. We've had all global players here for the last 20 plus years and competing with each other. That has helped Indian companies become a lot better over time. And we still haven't tapped into the world as yet, because we are not manufacturers for the world. And that's a change that we have to drive now, is how do we make the Indian auto industry the manufacturer for the world? And again, when I say the Indian auto industry, I don't refer to Indian manufacturers. I refer to everyone who is setting up manufacturing in India. And that requires addressing inverted duty structures. That requires ensuring that there's no protection for raw materials that come into creating automobiles, and maintaining the level playing field that we've had for a long time. But we have the right to win. We have the ability to create products in India that are world-class products, and having the right manufacturing setup, lowering logistics costs. There are a number of actions that can be done around that as well. That will really create a strong hub in India for manufacturing for automobiles. Similarly, tractors and farm equipment. This is one area where India again has an edge. In many cases has products that are better than competitors that come from various parts of the world. And we have started manufacturing in India for the rest of the world, but still at a smaller scale right now. Pharmaceuticals is already ahead. They've got a set of companies that are now very strong and have a large number of FDA-approved plants in India. So the list goes on. I think there's a whole set of industries. It's not restricted to a few, and that's the optimism around India.
Right. Now, you spoke about the auto sector. What do you think is the biggest roadblock which is stopping the growth of the auto sector in India globally, and what is the policy enabler that we need?
So I think we've come a long way. We've started making products in India that are of very high quality, and this is where I would talk about Mahindra specifically, and even the Tata Group. They've done a fantastic job in setting up world-class products. As we have these world-class products now, that's what we've got to be able to take outside. Our electric vehicles that will launch in November, which is this month, are, in my view, just outstanding, and something that will compete with world-class products. And from a policy standpoint, I think there are a few areas that we've been working with the government on, specifically around inverted duty structures and areas that take away some of the additional costs that come in for manufacturing in India. Nothing that I would look at as a broad brush thing that's required, but it's again looking at the details and addressing various different aspects that make manufacturing in India at a lower cost and easier to do.
Right. Now, as you mentioned about the Mahindra Group, which is launching 2 new EVs this month itself, do you believe now that the time for electric cars has now arrived in India? Very soon, EVs will be at an inflection point?
Yes, we do, because it starts with product. And when you create a wow product, consumers want it, and that enables everything else to happen after that. Range anxiety has to be addressed, but again, with electric origin or born electric products, that's something that's easily addressed. Charging infrastructure, the government again is doing a fantastic job in setting up the plan around the charging infrastructure and working closely with industry. FICCI has taken a huge lead. In fact, just today we have an EV program for the entire day with various government representatives coming in. Honorable Minister Kumaraswamy was here this morning, along with Shri Tarun Kapoor from the PMO. And then we've got a whole day where we're outlining what's required to address any roadblocks to adoption of EV in India, and how can we meet the targets that we've set of 30% by 2030. I'm optimistic that actually we will reach that faster. At Mahindra, we want to reach that even 2 or 3 years ahead of that. And as an industry, I think we should reach that faster as well. Right. So FICCI's played a huge role in making that happen. What's
the sentiment around electric vehicles in the market? If you had to explain the customer demand, how would that be?
Electric three-wheelers, very, very strong. And that's one which has been a huge success story. It's gone from 0% to 23% as an industry. And this is one which will go to 100% in the next 3 to 4 years. So consumers love the product. The subsidies provided by the government have helped, because without that, electric would not have come into play. And after 2 years, the subsidies will not be required. So this is a perfect example of a policy initiative that has worked very well. For four-wheelers, it requires world-class products. And that's where I'll hold my thoughts till November 26th when we have our launch. And we can actually see the products.
Right. On charging, one of the things that the industry chamber has done is provide a long-term roadmap to the government on electric vehicle charging. What's the crux of that?
Charging is going to be very critical. Now, there are various private sector players who are coming in and providing solutions, but we need to do that in a coordinated way. As a consumer, if I'd like to charge my car, I want to know what charging points are available within a few kilometers. Are they open right now? How long is it going to take to charge? What's the cost? And I may not care as much whether it's provided by company A, B, C, or D. And therefore, how can we bring all of it together? And this is one area where FICCI has been working closely with the Ministry of Heavy Industries to look at, first, on highways, where should be the charging points? Based on the data we have, where is the traffic, at what intervals should we have the charging points? Second, can we create an app that is linked to the Bharat digital stack that makes it one app for the customer that can answer all these questions I just asked, where you just go in and everything is easily available? And if that's done, then that will use the investments in this space a lot more efficiently and create a much greater charging infrastructure at a much lower cost and at a faster speed.
Right. My final question would be about the need for a rate cut. There's a great clamor right now for a rate cut. 2 senior cabinet ministers, the finance minister, the commerce minister, have both said that it is time for one. What's your expectation?
So for us, it is more important that the economy continues to be in a good shape in the medium term, not just in the short term. Inflation is a concern, and if a rate cut fuels more inflation, that's going to be negative for us. So I think that balancing act is very important. It's a difficult balancing act. I feel the RBI has done that very well so far, and that's something that is required going forward. So I wouldn't specifically say that yes, we should have a rate cut if it worsens inflation. I think controlling inflation is always the first priority from an economy standpoint. And as that happens, then rate cuts will follow.
Right. So there should not be any rate cut if it's causing more inflation.
Exactly right, because we've got to look at what is really good, not just today, but even a couple of years later. If inflation starts growing higher, it is going to be negative for us.
So inflation is a worry for you, Anish Shah.
Inflation is not a worry today, because I think the RBI has done a very nice job so far in staying ahead of the curve on it. And from all indications is that they continue to stay ahead of the curve. So today it's not a worry. It should not become a worry for us is the primary point.
All right, Mr. Shah, thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18, speaking about your vision for manufacturing and the Indian economy. On that note, we take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We've got another exclusive interview coming up. I catch up with John Pearson, the CEO of DHL Express, on the other side.